Hello and Happy New Year to everyone. I'm Stevon Lester, a junior at Columbus State University. Thank you for this opportunity. I just want to speak to everybody just for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to get out your way. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired of waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and make dreams your masters, if you can think and make thoughts your aims, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostures just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart, nerve, and sinew to serve your tongue long after they are gone, and so hold on to when there is nothing except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes or loving friends can hurt you, and if all men count with you, but none too much, and if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything which is in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. It's been about 110 years since Rudyard Kipling constructed and published that poem, but isn't it interesting how it resonates and relates to us in this day and age? Throughout the duration of this campaign race, we've constantly seen one side in particular continuously make the effort to diminish and demoralize Reverend Warnock's character, while the Warnock campaign has decided to focus instead on the issues. Kipling addresses this in the beginning lines of his poems when he states that or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and then goes on to state that if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you've given your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. Now, unfortunately, 2020 was a tough and trying year for many of us, and we've seen many lives taken during this year. Friends, families, icons, and legends, names never to be forgotten, including Senator John Lewis, a mentor to Reverend Warnock, someone who fought the good fight of faith in civil rights, and now Warnock has been presented the opportunity to carry the mantle. And yet again, we see the correlation between the poem and this election, as Kipling states, if you can force your heart, nerve, and sinew to serve their tongue long after they are gone, and to hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which states to hold on. I could go on and on about the relevance between the two subjects, but honestly, we've had enough talking. We are waiting on someone who can make the changes that we are wanting to see in this country. Now, we all know the statistics. 1 in 3 black men will experience jail time during their lives. And according to the NAACP, it was stated that there are 3 million people in jail and prison today. Despite America making up 5% of the global population, the U.S. has about 25% of the nation's prison population. 32% of the U.S. population is represented by African Americans and Hispanics, compared to the 56% of U.S. incarcerated population being presented by African American and Hispanics. Nationwide, African American children represent 32% of the children who have been arrested, 42% of the children who are being detained, and 52% of the children who are judicially waived to criminal court. African American children only represent 14% of the population. Now you tell me how that number makes sense. In 2012 alone, the U.S. spent nearly $81 billion on the correctional system. Spending billions on prisons and jails has increased at triple the rate versus spending it on K-12 public education in the last 30 years. There's a nationwide epidemic during the pandemic called the school-to-prison pipeline. The school-to-prison pipeline is a system in which children are funneled out of public schools and into the juvenile and criminal justice systems for creating problems in the classroom. Neglecting the fact that many of these students have learning disabilities, histories of poverty and abuse, and on the outside issues that affect their inner classroom behaviors. Properly funding our police allows therefore there to be access to give to our potential public school districts. So we can see the end of overcrowded classrooms, lack of qualified teachers, and instead invest in better supplies and resources, better staffing for our qualified teachers, counselors, and special educators. Reverend Warnock believes that we need to invest in teachers in schools so that they will have the resources they need, as we all understand that children are our future. But what can we do now for those re-entering society and being incarcerated? Many of the formerly incarcerated also suffer from a loss of their rights as a result to their records. In 34 states, people who have been put on parole or probation cannot vote, and we understand that your vote is your voice. In 12 states, a felony conviction means never voting again. In addition to prior incarceration can affect one's ability to secure federal benefits or even get a job. 650,000 Americans return to their communities from prison each year. And about half of them will return to prison within a few years. Nearly 50,000 legal restrictions against people with arrests and convictions routinely block access to jobs, housing, educational opportunities, which significantly contributes to the high rates of increased incarcerations with the criminal justice system. Nearly 75% of incarcerated people are still unemployed after a year of their release, and we understand that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. A lack of a stable employment increases the likelihood that an individual will return to jail or prison. Now, Reverend Warnock believes that it is morally and economically backwards to close the door of social re-entry on the formerly incarcerated. Understanding that arrest for even minor infractions can devastate generations of Georgians when parents and children are stripped of their potential for upward social mobility. Warnock believes that people who have paid their debt to society can continue to make contributions to the community after they have served their time. Now, we've learned a lot about ourselves, others, and the leaders of our country during this pandemic. And now that 2021 has arrived, people are no longer content on waiting on the sidelines for change to happen. We protested for Breonna Taylor. We protested for George Floyd. We protested for Ahmaud Arbery and others. And it's left us with the question, now what? We've received the one-time payment of $1,200, and some even received unemployment benefits up until August. But now it has left Americans across the nation trying to figure out how to navigate this pandemic without a job. While other countries are still making sure that their citizens are being financially compensated during these unprecedented times. Now what? We went out and stood in the long lines to cast our votes back in October and November. Now what? We went early in the runoff and are still encouraging others to go out and vote on election day so that we can make history again. Now what? Well, I'll tell you what. First, we elect Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff into the Senate so that the President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris can begin to enact policies to enhance the lives of Americans across the country and not just the high class. Next, we hold our elected officials accountable so that they can ensure that we are getting what we promised when we voted for. Next, we'll continue to be advocates for civil rights, but not just talk about it. Columbus, Georgia, we need to be about it. We will lend a hand to those struggling in the pandemic. We will go the extra mile to mentor our students on the south and east side of Columbus to ensure that they are not the next victims of the school-to-prison pipeline. We will love one another instead of judging each other. And lastly, we will come back in 2 years and vote again when the seat is open. We will come back and vote 4 years from now when it's time for another presidential election. We will be the change that we seek because we are the manifestation of the dreams of our ancestors. God bless you all and a Happy New Year.